Hello everyone. Thanks for watching, subscribe, and let's go.
This man spent 15 years building a sanctuary, only to realize he was protecting a person who had already opened the gates to a total stranger. Let's analyze the subtle warning signs most men miss and the clinical precision required to handle a betrayal that cuts to the bone. Educational purposes only. Listen, I've spent my whole life making things look perfect from the outside. That's what I do. People in Milwaukee with too much money and not enough time call me when they want their backyard to look like a page out of Architectural Digest. I know how to hide the ugly parts of the earth under expensive sod and decorative stone. I thought I'd done the same with my life. I thought I'd built something solid. It was a Friday evening in late September. The air had that crisp Wisconsin bite to it, maybe 62 degrees Fahrenheit. I was standing on the patio of our home in that gated community in Mequon. You know the place. Stone pillars, security guards who recognize your car, and lawns so green they look fake. I was looking at the new lighting system I'd just finished installing. Subtle, warm LEDs hitting the Japanese maples just right. Linda came out through the French doors. She looked like $1 million, which was her job. She's a high-end realtor. She does not just sell houses. She sells the dream. She was wearing a silk dress the color of expensive wine and those high heels that make a specific clicking sound on the travertine tile. Click, click, click. "William?" "Honey," she said. Her voice was smooth, like she was rehearsing a listing presentation. "We need to get moving. The party at the Iron Horse starts at 8 p.m. sharp." She walked up to me and adjusted my collar. Her hands were cold. I noticed a small red mark on the side of her neck, right near the hairline. It looked like she'd caught her skin in a zipper, or maybe a necklace had pulled too hard. "What happened there?" I asked, reaching out to touch it. She flinched. Just a tiny bit, but I felt it. "Oh, that?" she laughed, waving a hand. "Just a reaction to that new Chanel perfume I tried at Macy's today. My skin has been so sensitive lately. Stress, you know?" The Miller account is driving me crazy. Well, I bought it. Well, why would not I? We'd been married for 15 years. We had the 401ks, the joint Wells Fargo account, the charcoal grill that cost more than my first truck. We were the power couple. "Anyway," she said, checking her reflection in the glass door. "Tonight is big. There are 3 developers from Chicago coming up. If we play our cards right, we land that 10-acre project in the 3rd Ward. Think about what that would do for our Christmas bonus." She grabbed her Prada clutch and headed for the garage. I followed her. We took her Lexus because it projected the right image. As we pulled out of the driveway, I watched her out of the corner of my eye. She was staring at her phone, her thumb moving a mile a minute. Every time a notification popped up, she'd tilt the screen away from me. "Important client?" I asked. "Just a lead on a condo in Whitefish Bay," she muttered. "They're being pushy." I sat back and watched the streetlights of the I-43 flash by. I felt a knot in my stomach. I told myself it was just the excitement of the business deal. I told myself I was lucky to have a woman who worked as hard as I did. I was a damn fool. The Iron Horse Hotel is a cool spot. It's got that industrial chic vibe, lots of dark wood and leather. The bar was packed. The smell of expensive bourbon and craft beer was thick in the air. We'd been there maybe 45 minutes. I was stuck talking to a guy named Gary who wanted to tell me everything about his golf handicap. Linda had disappeared a few minutes earlier. She told me she had to find the restroom and then track down a guy named Marcus from a local construction firm. I finished my soda water, I was driving, and scanned the room. No Linda. I walked toward the back, past the main bar area, thinking she might be in the lounge near the outdoor patio. The music was thumping, some heavy bass track that made the floor vibrate. I pushed through a set of heavy curtains near the service entrance. That's when the world stopped spinning. There's a small, dimly lit hallway that leads to the private smoking area. It's mostly for staff, but people slip back there for privacy. I saw her. She was not talking to a developer. She was pinned against the brick wall. A guy in a black leather jacket, not the kind you buy at Nordstrom, but the kind that's seen some road, had his hands all over her. He looked like he'd stepped out of a dive bar in West Alice. Greasy hair, stubble, and the kind of grin that told you he did not care who saw him. Linda was not fighting. Her head was back, her eyes were closed, and she was laughing. A low, dirty laugh I had not heard in a decade. Her silk dress was hitched up, and his hand was firmly planted on her thigh, his fingers digging into the fabric. She was leaning into him, her arms wrapped around his neck, pulling him closer. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds. It felt like 10 years. I saw her hand reach up and grab his hair, pulling his face down to hers. She whispered something in his ear, and he barked out a laugh. "My husband is such a boring gardener," I heard her say over the muffle of the music. "He thinks I'm at a board meeting. He has not a clue." She did not see me. I backed away, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. My vision went blurry for a second. I walked back into the main bar, my face hot. I did not go to her. I did not make a scene. I went to the bar, grabbed a napkin, and wiped the sweat off my palms. I'm a man who plans. I do not react blindly. I knew right then that the woman I'd lived with for 15 years did not exist. She was a ghost, a lie. And I was going to make sure she felt every bit of the cold reality I was about to drop on her. I did not leave. I waited. I watched the hallway like a hawk. About 10 minutes later, the guy walked out alone. He looked smug. He headed straight for the men's room. I gave it a beat, then followed him. The bathroom was empty, just me and him. He was at the sink, splashing water on his face, whistling some tune. I walked up behind him. I'm 6'2", and I spend my days hauling stone. I'm not a small man. I grabbed him by the back of his jacket and slammed him into the mirror. The glass did not break, but the sound was like a gunshot in that small room. "Hey, what the hell, man?" he choked out. "Who are you?" I asked. My voice was low, dangerous. "I do not know what you're talking about. She said she was single. She said she was divorced." He was shaking. The tough guy act vanished the second he felt real weight behind a grip. "She lied," I said. "And you're going to leave. Now, if I see your face near her or my house, you won't not walk away next time. Do you get me?" Yeah, man, I'm gone." I let him go. He scrambled out the door, nearly tripping over his own boots. I walked back into the lounge. Linda was standing by a pillar, smoothing her dress, looking like the picture of professional grace. She saw me and smiled. "There you are, Uhl," she said, walking over. "I could not find Marcus. I think he left early." "Is that so?" I said. I looked at her neck again. The red mark was darker now. Just then, her friend in the leather jacket bolted past us toward the exit. He did not even look at her. He was moving like his hair was on fire. Linda's smile faltered. She watched him go, her eyes widening. She looked back at me, then at the door, then back at me. "Uhl, who was that guy? He almost knocked me over," she lied. The sheer gall of it made my blood boil. "He's the guy who just told me you were single, Linda," I said. Her face went gray. Not pale. Gray. Like wet cement. "What? I do not know what you mean." "Stop," I said. I stepped into her personal space. "I saw you in the hallway. I heard you call me the boring gardener. I saw where his hands were. She started to shake. Wait. It's not what it looks like. He's just a guy from a bar. I was stressed. I had too much to drink. It was a mistake. One mistake. One mistake? I laughed. It was not a happy sound. You looked pretty practiced to me. You looked like you'd done that walk to the back hallway 100 times. Please, Uil, do not do this here. Let's go home. We can talk about this. I love you. She reached for my hand, her eyes welling up with tears. Real or fake, I did not care. You do not know the meaning of the word, I said. I turned around and walked out. I did not wait for her. I did not hold the door. The hope in her eyes as she followed me out was the most pathetic thing I'd ever seen. The drive back to Mequon was silent. Well, except for her sobbing. It was that ragged, desperate sound people make when they realize their safety net has been cut. I kept my hands at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel. I did not look at her once. When we got inside the house, she went into full damage control mode. Will, listen to me, she said, following me into the kitchen. I'll go to therapy. I'll quit the firm. I'll do anything, please. We've built so much. Think about the house, the trips to Cabo, the life we have. That's the problem, Linda, I said, turning to face her. You think life is a collection of stuff. You think as long as the lawn is mowed and the Lexus is washed, you can do whatever you want in the dark. It was just once, she screamed. She was getting desperate now, angry. You're always working. You're always dirty, smelling like mulch and dirt. He made me feel noticed. I work to pay for this, I said, gesturing to the marble countertops. I work to give you the life you wanted, and you used that life to find someone to spit on me. I walked toward the master suite. She ran ahead of me, blocking the door. She started unzipping her dress. Will, look at me. I'm your wife. Remember how we used to be? Just tonight, let me show you how much I want to make this right. She let the dress fall to her waist. In the moonlight coming through the window, she looked like the woman I'd loved for half my life. But I did not feel anything. No spark, no desire. Just an overwhelming sense of disgust. It was like looking at a beautiful piece of fruit that you know is rotten to the core inside. Put your clothes on, Linda, I said. My voice was flat. You look desperate. It's not a good look on a Realtor of the Year. I pushed past her, grabbed my gym bag, and went to the guest room. I locked the door. She pounded on it for an hour, crying, screaming, telling me I was heartless. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall. I did not sleep. I just waited for the sun to come up. At 6 a.m., I went to the garage. I grabbed a stack of those heavy-duty black contractor bags, the thick ones that do not tear. I walked into the master bedroom. She was passed out on top of the covers, still in her slip. I did not wake her gently. I kicked the base of the bed. Get up, I said. She bolted upright, looking disoriented. Will? Is it morning? I did not answer. I went to her walk-in closet. It was the size of a small apartment. Thousands of dollars in shoes, bags, and designer suits. I grabbed a handful of dresses, the expensive ones from Nordstrom, and stuffed them into a bag. What are you doing? Stop! That's my Chanel! She shrieked, jumping out of bed. It's my money, I said, and it's leaving my house. I did not stop. I worked with a clinical efficiency. I cleared the shelves, the drawers, the vanity. I dragged 4 bulging bags to the front door. She was hysterical now, clawing at my arms, trying to pull the bags back. I moved her aside like she was a piece of lawn furniture. I was not mean about it, I was just done. I opened the front door and threw the bags out onto the driveway. One of them split, and her expensive Italian heels spilled out onto the concrete. "You cannot do this! I live here! My name is on the deed!" she yelled. "Actually," I said, pulling a folder from the entryway table, "the house is held in my family trust. Your lawyer must have missed that in the prenup. You have 10 minutes to get in your car and leave." I took her by the arm, firmly but without hurting her, and led her to the porch. I grabbed her Prada bag and threw it at her feet. "Wheel, please!" "Where am I supposed to go?" "I do not care," I said. "Try the leather jacket guy. Maybe he has a couch." I stepped back inside and closed the heavy oak door. I heard her screaming and banging, but I walked straight to the kitchen and made a pot of coffee. 10 minutes later, I heard the sound of her Lexus screaming down the driveway. I sat there in the silence. It was the best the house had felt in years. By 9 a.m., I was at the offices of a local outdoor advertising company. I knew the owner. I'd done the landscaping for his corporate headquarters 3 years ago. "Bill, what can I do for you?" he asked, surprised to see me. "I need the digital board on I-94, the one right before the Moreland Road exit. How much for a week?" "That's a prime spot, Bill. It'll cost you $5,000. "I'll pay $10,000 if you have it up by noon," I said. I handed him a thumb drive. "And I want this image used." He looked at the screen. It was a still I'd pulled from the security footage I'd paid the bartender at the Iron Horse $500 for earlier that morning. It showed Linda, clear as day, with her hands all over that guy, her face twisted in that mocking laugh. Above the photo, I'd had a graphic designer friend of mine put some text in bold black letters. "Real Estate Agent of the Year, Linda Miller, specializing in lies, cheating, and broken homes. Want to see her close a deal? Scan here." The scan code led to a private cloud link. It was not anything illegal. It was just a recording of her own voice from our car's dash cam from a month ago, where she was bragging to a friend on the phone about how she'd overcharged a young couple for a house with a cracked foundation because they were too stupid to notice. By 1 p.m., my phone started blowing up. "Ewell, have you seen the board?" "Bill, man, I'm so sorry. Is that really Linda?" Her broker called me, sounding like he was having a heart attack. "William, you have to take that down. It's destroying our firm's reputation." "Then I guess you should fire her," I said. "Because that board stays up for 7 days, every client she has is going to see exactly who they're trusting with their money." I went back to work. I spent the afternoon digging a hole for a new pond. It felt good to get my hands in the dirt. Real dirt, not the kind Linda dealt in. 5 days later, I was sitting on my back porch. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the yard. It was quiet. No more screaming, no more lying. A beat-up silver Chevrolet Impala pulled up to the gate. I recognized it. It was her mother's car. Her mom lived in Oshkosh, in a small 2-bedroom house that smelled like menthol cigarettes and regret. I hit the button to open the gate. The car crawled up the driveway. Linda got out. She looked terrible. She was wearing a stained sweatshirt and leggings. Her hair was a mess. The power woman was gone. In her place was a broken, middle-aged woman who had gambled everything on a moment of cheap thrill and lost. "Ewell," she said, standing at the bottom of the porch steps. She did not come up. She knew better. "I lost the job. The firm let me go on Monday. My clients, they all walked away." "I know," I said. "I have nothing," she whispered. My credit cards are maxed out. I cannot even get an apartment because of the things people are saying online. Please, just let me stay in the guest room until I figure things out. I looked at her. I thought about the 15 years I'd given her. I thought about the way she'd laughed at me behind my back. No, I said. Buil, I'm your wife. No, you're a stranger who lived in my house, I corrected her. The divorce papers were served to your mother's house this morning. You get nothing, Linda. Not a dime. That's what happens when you sign a contract you do not intend to keep. Her mother honked the horn from the car, a sharp, impatient sound. Go on, I said. Do not keep her waiting. She stood there for a long minute, looking at the house. I could see the realization hitting her. This was it. No more Mequon. No more designer bags. Just a cramped bedroom in Oshkosh and a lifetime of being that woman from the billboard. She turned around, her shoulders slumped, and got into the passenger seat of the rusted-out Chevy. I watched the taillights disappear through the gate. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my wedding ring. I walked over to the kitchen window and dropped it into the garbage disposal. I flipped the switch. The sound of the metal grinding, screaming, and finally snapping was the most satisfying thing I'd heard in a long time. I poured myself a glass of water and looked out at my garden. It was finally clean. The hero's biggest mistake was not his kindness. It was his assumption that a shared lifestyle equals shared values. He built a facade of perfection while ignoring the slow rot hidden behind a silk dress and professional titles. My advice is twofold. First, always verify the legal structure of your assets before a crisis hits. Knowledge of your prenup and property rights is your only real armor. Second, when you see the truth, act with cold logic rather than blind rage. Silence and a plan will always win over a loud scene. What would you have done if you saw that billboard on your way to work? Write your thoughts in the comments below and subscribe for more honest case studies.